were some good years during such a time because we were still young. I don't know if most of you were young as I was during
You want
that
us
time.
to reveal our ages, maybe?
But you know, it reminds me of that time because such times is when I used to see my dad very early in the morning, such hours when he was getting out. And during such times, my mind was, why do people have to wake up so early in the morning? Now here I am doing
Waking
the
up
same
probably
thing.
earlier than your dad
Exactly.
used to.
So back at the time, I would ask him, why are you going? I didn't see you in the night and you're waking up today very early in the morning. I didn't even get the chance to greet him. So it is at times like this when I realize people did wake up so early in the morning, you know, to go and catch the early bird, or what you could to catch the worm, because they normally say the early bird catches the worm.
Yes.
But of course, times have really changed, because back in the time, during such times, exactly, that during such times, however early you wake up, at times you may never catch the worm. You may find the worm somewhere
already
else.
taken.
Exactly. But it reminds me of how hardworking our parents were back in the time. And during such days, by the way, it would be very difficult to catch traffic as early as 6.
You know why? Back in the day, Ugandans didn't own as many cars as they do today. Today, you're going to see a number plate, let's say maybe UBJ, and before you know it, in a few weeks, there is a new number plate, because the rate at which Ugandans are acquiring vehicles
Every
is
month,
really high, very high. Good morning, Chantal.
Good morning, Olive. How are you doing?
I'm great. It has rained this morning, and you know, when it rains, driving to work is a bit of a hassle because the roads are slippery. So I'm wondering, how was it this morning on your way here?
It was great. I love the rain sometimes in the morning because it kind of isolates some of the road users, and it helps also. Some people get to be more careful, so it slows people down, and in a way, it's a good thing.
Okay. So what are you throwing back to this morning? Because I believe you were up to some things back in the day.
I would like to throw back to my old, my village church. The hymns in that church every single day up to today, when they play, there is something different about the hymns in those days' church and in today's church. There is something different. They hit different, and I think I'm in the spirit.
You're in the spirit. That's beautiful. I wonder if Chirabo is in the spirit. Good morning, Chirabo.
Good morning, team, and good morning, everybody. Definitely, I'm not in the spirit this morning. Two things that I've really... No, you know, throwing back. When we were young, whenever it would rain, power would go off.
Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, it is still the same. It rains, and I'm asking myself, why is the connectivity? That in Uganda, when you have showers, electricity goes off, and it's normal. You know, 30 years since we had that. By then, we had even UEB. I don't know who of you was around in the days of UEB.
Well,
we want it.
Why do you want us to?
No, Throwback Thursday.
Anyway,
UEB, where someone who used to come with that. And then, also one thing I throw back is that playing in the rain.
Oh, yes.
You know, once it rains, you even remove all your clothes.
Yes.
You play in the rain. But the funny thing was, what was the
correlation between rain and musuja?
And musuja, because now we take kids to swim, and they never get sick, yet they even dive and all that. Now, you're talking about water treated, but water from heaven is very much treated.
I think the correlation was tegwali musuja nti musuja malaria, but it was fever.
After
the cold,
yes,
you expose the cold for long, so you get a fever, but not that you would get omusuja malaria, and that's what they called omusuja. But well, very many of us got a good beating because of playing in the rain. That was a good throwback, Sharabo.
Actually, speaking about the rain, for me, I'm throwing back to Gogolo. You remember, like how we would would ride bicycles, but we were not riding the actual bicycles. If you know Gogolo, you get a hill, it is slippery, you sit, and then someone pushes you and you go.
Sometimes you use an old jerry can.
Yes,
an old jerry can, then there you go.
But planned kids don't know.
Now the problem
they don't.
is they have missed so much in child
They
development.
have bicycles, what?
So, are you okay?
Those were important values because one, they enhanced creativity.
Yes.
For example, I don't know the song
No,
called.
I love your diction when you say childhood development. I was here thinking and remembering when I was in top class P1, P2. I swear those are the things we used to do. You go to the latrine, immediately you're done. The very first thing that goes into your mind is the bicycle.
Ah, no. But when I talked about these things that would enhance child development, those days if you need a toy car, you had to make one.
Yes.
You get wires.
Exactly.
Women has connected somebody, those women. Then you get rubbers.
Even the guns, if you needed a toy gun, you make one for yourself.
If you need a ball, after dad has bought milk, even away from banana fibers, we had these pints of milk, after they have removed. So you blow, then you get again, you make your ball. Creativity. Today, Biana.
We go to the supermarket.
Dad, I want a ball. Dad, I want a toy car. We would make cars, you people. Dolls. They didn't even have sirens.
Dolls.
The girls, dolls. Today that creativity has gone away.
Yeah,
because children are used to.
Just imagine a young boy at 5
Mm-hmm.
being able to make a similarity of a Volkswagen. And then it takes time.
But is that a bad thing, us embracing the new times, embracing technology, simplifying life for our children?
It makes children lazy.
Come on.
Yeah, it
so
does
you
make
were
most of
not
them
lazy. I see you going
creative.
to the moon.
No, we can't go to the moon, but you get to realize that currently most of these young children are a bit lazy. There are things they can't do for themselves when their parents are not available. They feel like they're out, they're not loved and everything. They can't ideally socialize with the rest. I've actually seen parents giving their children smartphones at the age of 8, 10, 6, and it's even becoming worse.
And you know how I agree with you, Sonko, is because, like you said, it limits creativity.
Exactly.
Personally, by like P1, I knew how to maneuver through Kampala.
Exactly.
Now, imagine the roads of those days. Right now, one of my siblings cannot. Where do I go? You want to beat them up and beat
There's
some
a van
creativity.
that picks them from
You
home.
people, times
then
have
to
changed.
then
You were raised on struggle love. Children today are being raised on not struggle love.
Didn't just call it struggle
Anyway. So please keep your struggle love in the past. The children today are thriving and they are enjoying. But anyway, speaking about thriving, I don't know if the Speaker of Parliament is enjoying how ministers are thriving by not attending plenary. So yesterday there was an incident. The Speaker of Parliament, Anita Annette Among, had to be forced herself to adjourn plenary because all 83 ministers didn't show up. And she was not amused. She said, these people are highly paid to come here and listen to the views that members of parliament raise because they are from the people that we represent, and then they have to give us answers. So them not coming here is actually taking what we do for granted. She wasn't happy, and I get where she was coming from. Because if you're a minister, as in, explain to me why all 83 ministers didn't show up.
But I think also there's a problem in this country, and we must look at it. Yes, I have ex-officials. One person having 3, 5, would I call them positions or jobs? You find one is a minister, board chairperson, this, that, too much. Just imagine, one is a minister, they have a constituency. Yes, then they have about 6 boards of some organizations they could be chairing or members. There's so much. And,
on their desks.
And our Right Honorable Speaker, yes, we didn't have these people. But also the problem of absenteeism does not only come to the ministers. That parliament has 500 and I think 29 members of parliament.
Yet half the time all benches
but all the time you don't get 50% turn up unless there's some exciting bill that is going to be.
There was the anti-homosexuality.
Yes, there you will have all of them. And one time I was
discussed.
cracking a joke with one of the MPs. I told them, if you are presenters doing the morning show we do, then it would in a month people would have it 3 or 2 times because there is high level of absenteeism. It is something that must be addressed as Parliament, but not forgetting that issue that sometimes we are overwhelmed. A minister is supposed to be in Parliament, she's supposed to be launching something, she's a guest of honor somewhere, you know, she's, or he, they have so much work that they don't, she has people waiting for her at her office with issues of national concern. Someone, Minister of Lands, you go to their office, people from there to there, they have issues. She's going for field visits, or he's going for field visits. Now, as long as we still have, you're a minister, you're a member of Parliament, you're on this, you're on that. No,
but Robert, in as much as they are busy,
quality debates sometimes.
I get that. By the way, when it comes to debates, even when they were debating the whole anti-homosexuality bill, I felt like most of them were not well researched because most of them were presenting sentiments rather than you know, deep research. Facts. But away from that, in as much as they are busy, all 83 cannot be so busy that they cannot show up for plenary. That is unacceptable.
83 is a big number.
That's a big number.
At least we can have a lower percentage, or we can at least have a big percentage in Parliament. I think, like Chirawa mentioned, the idea of absenteeism is because we've normalized.
And it comes from the grassroots. You're going to find an employee not showing up to work because it rained, or coming late to work because it rained. You're going to find someone, they get a little bit of fever and they don't show up because they are sick. So this is everywhere, because we've had this being said, Ugandans are lazy, Ugandans don't want to work, Ugandans have poor attitude towards work. And it keeps going on and on. Now, if ministers that we are supposed to look up to, we are seeing headlines where ministers didn't show up for plenary, it shows that the entire system, as in the entire country, from the askari to the minister, it is all rotten. And as Ugandans, we need to be embarrassed and ashamed of ourselves.
You know, this is this comes from really far, because even in 2015. There was a report that cited absenteeism by these ministers. So it means it's been happening over the years, and unfortunately for us, we just talk about it and leave it there instead of doing something about it.
But what should we do? Okay, for instance, the Speaker of Parliament, what is she supposed to do?
Who puts these ministers in office?
The President.
Thank you. So what is the President doing about it? Those are some of the questions that we ought to ask ourselves.
Anyway, speaking about the president, tonight there will be a presidential national address. The Presidential Press Unit, that is PPU, wishes to Republic that the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency retired General Kaguta Museveni, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, will at 8 p.m. tonight, September 7th, 2023, address the nation on security matters and other issues of national importance. The address will be aired live on all TV and radio stations, so please don't forget to tune in. Now, at this point, we will be digging into the local stories and then international stories.
And we'll begin with His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who emphasized the importance of Africa countries uniting to enhance their investment potential. Museveni was speaking at the closure of the Uganda-South Africa Business Summit in Munyonyo. The summit, themed Accelerating Investment and Trade between Uganda and South Africa, aimed to strengthen economic ties between Uganda and South Africa. Some of the private sector investors credited President Museveni for leveraging support towards the private sector, saying it is the way to go.
And moving on, we are looking at the UNEB exams timetable for 2023 that has been released. Uganda National Examinations Board has released the 2023 examination tables for primary leaving examination, Uganda Certificate of Education, and Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education. Executive Director, Uganda National Examinations Board, Dan Odongo, says the examinations of this year will begin begin on Friday, October 13th, 2023, with the briefing of UCE candidates and end on 17th November. PLE examinations will begin on November 7th with briefing of candidates and end on 9th November. The UACE, that is Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education examinations, will begin on November 10th with briefing and end on 1st December 2023.
Moving on, the Speaker of Parliament, Annette Anita Amongi, has engaged the executive to ascertain the motive behind the habitual practice of ministers failing to attend plenary sessions. Anita Amongi was forced to prematurely adjourn Wednesday's sitting after the front bench was vacant. The move comes after several warnings by the Parliament's presidential officers.
Moving on, a research study report conducted by Public Services International on addressing the challenges of violence and harassment in the world of work has identified inadequate labor supervisors in districts as one of the challenges affecting the full implementation of the Employment Act 2006. The study was carried out in the sample public sector employees within the education, health and energy sectors.
Away from that, we cross over to the international scene. The court decriminalizes abortion across Mexico. Now, the judgment comes 2 years after the court ruled in favor of a challenge to the existing law in the northern state of Coahuila. It had ruled that criminal penalties for terminating pregnancies were unconstitutional. Mexico's states and the federal government had since been slow to repeal penal codes. The new ruling legalizes abortion across all 32 states. The Supreme Court said the denial of the possibility of a termination violated the human rights of women. In cases of rape, no girl can be forced to become a mother, neither by the state nor by her parents nor her guardians, said the head of the Supreme Court, Arturo. And away from that, scientists have grown an entity that closely resembles an early human embryo without using sperm, eggs, or a womb. The Weizmann Institute team says their embryo model made using stem cells looks like a textbook example of a real 14-day-old embryo. It even released hormones that turned a pregnancy test positive in the lab. The ambition of embryo models is to provide an ethical way of understanding the earliest moments of our lives. The first weeks after a sperm fertilizes an egg is a period of dramatic change from a collection of indistinct cells to something that eventually becomes recognizable on a baby's scan. This crucial time is a major source of miscarriage and birth defects, but poorly understood. It is a black box, and that's not cliché. That's not a cliche. Our knowledge is very limited, and this is according to Professor Jacob Hanna from the Weizmann Institute of Science. Coming back to Africa, Gabon's former president, Ali Bongo Ondimba, has been released from house arrest and is free to leave the country for medical treatment, the military which removed him from power last month said. Bongo, who had been held under house arrest since a military coup on August 30th, was toppled from power shortly after he was declared the winner of the much criticized elections that would have seen him extend his 14-year rule as president. Given his state of health, the former president of the republic, Ali Bongo Ondimba, is free to move about. He may, if he wishes, travel abroad for medical checkups, Gabon's military spokesperson, Colonel Ulrich, said in a statement read on national television yesterday evening. The statement announcing Bongo's release from house arrest was signed by General Brice, who was sworn in as Gabon's new head of state on Monday. And Africa proposes global carbon taxes to fight climate change. The Nairobi Declaration capped the 3-day Africa Climate Summit in Kenya's capital. The document released on Wednesday demanded that major polluters commit more resources to help poorer nations. African heads of state say they will use it as the basis of their negotiating position at November's COP28 summit. The African Climate Summit was dominated by discussions on how to mobilize financing to adapt to increasingly extreme weather, conserve natural resources, and develop renewable energy. Africa is among the most vulnerable continents to the impact of climate change, but according to researchers, it only receives about 12% of the nearly $300 billion in annual financing it needs to cope. That is it for climate news and international news.
Thank you so much, Chantal. Now we will be digging into the headlines that have made it to the New Vision and, of course, the Daily Monitor. But before that, I would like to remind you that the president of this country, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, will be addressing the nation tonight at 8 p.m. And this address will be about matters of national importance, that is security and other issues. So don't forget to tune in. The address will be live on all local TV stations and, of course, radios. Sonko, please.
And in the front pages of our local papers today, the Daily Monitor highlights the NDA looked away as AIDS drug was fed to animals. Of course, there was trending information yesterday regarding to the fact that ARVs have been given to pigs, and that means anyone who has been taking pork has been also indirectly feeding on ARVs. Then furthermore, still with the Daily Monitor, in the economy, President Museveni warns South African investors. This was during day 2 of the Uganda-South African Investment Summit. Then furthermore, in the other news, UNEB issues timetable for final examinations, that is for USCE, UCE, as well as the PLE. Then also, Makere is to probe Balokole discrimination claim. That is still with the Daily Monitor. Bobi Wine asks Biden and European Union to defund Uganda. And of course, he's continuing with his country tours for the National Unity Platform. Now, in the segment of relationships, David looked beyond my scars. There's a report on that and how the two met. Then furthermore, the FDC saga takes a different twist as Dr. Besigye now backs Biringwa conference. And also, in the other news, absentee ministers frustrate Parliament. That is another report with the Daily Monitor today. And in the Lizard highlights, can the public deliver in regards to Biringwa, who now turns to public to fund his conference. Now, still with the local dailies here in Uganda, the front pages of the New Vision, UNEB, Senior 4, Senior 6 timetable is out, as the detailed timetables are inside today's edition of the New Vision. Then also, President Museveni emphasizes value addition at the Uganda-South African Summit, pictorial of the president with some of the key investors that are both Ugandan and South African, including the MTN CEO, Sylvia Molinge. Now, politics, why Bobi Wine attacked Nandala. There is a report on that. Then Vision is TV East now on. Then also, furthermore, there are over 110 tender offers for all of the job seekers. So you can easily get one of that, as General Moses Ali asks UK to pay Nubians. Why is that? So you can get more of that with the New Vision today.
And that's it for our press review. Now we will take a short break, and when we come back, we will be tackling all matters weather. You see, we were warned by the Uganda National Meteorological Authority that September, October, November and December are going to experience very high or beyond normal rainfall. So we want to delve into that and see how prepared we are as a country regarding these weather changes. So we would like for you to join this conversation when we come back through WhatsApp messaging and, of course, on the X app. For now, we'll leave you with an inspiration song. You want us to reveal our ages, really?
But, you know, it reminds me of that time, because such times is when I used to see my dad very early in the morning, such hours when he was getting out. And during such times, my mind was, why do people have to wake up so early in the morning? Now here I am doing
waking
the
up
same
probably
thing.
earlier than your dad
Exactly.
used to.
So back at the time, I would ask him, why are you going? I didn't see you in the night, and you're waking up today very early in the morning. I didn't even get the chance to greet him. So it is at times like this when I realize people did wake up so early in the morning, you know, to go and catch the early bird, or what you could to catch the worm, because they normally say the early bird catches the worm.
Yes.
But of course, times have really changed, because back in the time, during such times, that during such times, however early you wake up, at times you may never catch the worm. You may find the worm somewhere
already
else.
taken.
Exactly. But it reminds me of how hardworking our parents were back in the time. And during such days, by the way, it would be very difficult to catch traffic as early as 6.
You know why? Back in the day, Ugandans didn't own as many cars as they do today. Today, you're going to see a number plate, let's say maybe UBJ, and before you know it, in a few weeks, there is a new number plate, because the rate at which Ugandans are acquiring vehicles
Every month, huh?
Really high, very high. Good morning, Chantal.
Good morning, Olive. How are you doing?
I'm great. It has rained this morning, and you know, when it rains, driving to work is a bit of a hassle because the roads are slippery. So I'm wondering, how was it this morning on your way here?
It was great. I love the rain sometimes in the morning because it kind of isolates some of the road users, and it helps also. Some people get to be more careful, so it slows people down, and in a way, it's a good thing.
Okay. So what are you throwing back to this morning? Because I believe you were up to some things back in the day.
I would like to throw back to my old, my village church. The hymns in that church every single day up to today, when they play, there is something different about the hymns in those days church and in today's church. There is something different. They hit different, and I think I'm in the spirit.
You're in the spirit. That's beautiful. I wonder if Chirabo is in the spirit. Good morning, Chirabo.
Good morning, team, and good morning, everybody. Definitely, I'm not in the spirit this morning. Two things that I've really... No, you know, throwing back. When we were young, whenever it would rain, power would go off.
Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, it is still the same. It rains, and I'm asking myself, what is the connectivity? That in Uganda, when you have showers, electricity goes off, and it's normal. You know, 30 years since we had that. By then, we had even UEB. I don't know who of you was around in the days of UEB.
Well, we want to.
Why do you want us to?
No, Throwback Thursday. UEB,
Anyway,
where someone who used to come with that. And then, also one thing I throw back is that playing in the rain.
Oh, yes.
You know, once it rains, you even remove all your clothes.
Yes.
You play in the rain. But the funny thing was, what was the
correlation between rain and musuja?
And musuja, because now we take kids to swim, and they never get sick, yet they even dive and all that. Now, you're talking about water treated, but water from heaven is very much treated.
I think the correlation was tegwali musuja nti musuja malaria, but it was fever.
After
the cold,
being
yes, you expose the cold for long,
yes.
so you get a fever, but not that you would get omusuja malaria, and that's what they called omusuja. But well, very many of us got a good beating because of playing in the rain. That was a good throwback, Sharavo.
Actually, speaking about the rain, for me, I'm throwing back to Gogolo. You remember, like how we'd ride bicycles, but we were not riding the actual bicycles. If you know Gogolo, you get a hill, it is slippery, you sit, and then someone pushes you and you go.
Sometimes you use an old jerry can.
Yes,
an old
jerry can, then there you go.
But plant kids don't know.
Now the problem
they
is they have missed so much in child
they
development.
have bicycles, what?
So, are you okay?
Those were important values because one, they enhanced creativity.
Yes.
For example, I don't know the song called.
I love your diction when you say childhood development. I was here thinking and remembering when I was in top class P1, P2. I swear those are the things we used to do. You go to the latrine, immediately you're done. The very first thing that goes into your mind is the bicycle.
Ah, no. But when I talked about these things that would enhance child development, those days if you need a toy car, you had to make one.
Yes.
You get wires.
Exactly.
Remember, has connected somebody, those women. Then you get rubbers.
Even the guns, if you needed a toy gun, you make one for yourself.
If you need a bowl, after that has bought milk, even away from banana fibers, we had these pints of milk, after they have removed. So you blow, then you get the you make your bowl. Creativity. Today, Biana.
We go to the supermarket.
Dad, I want a bowl. Dad, I want a toy car. We would make cars, you people. Dolls. They didn't even have sirens.
Dolls.
The girls, dolls. Today, that creativity has gone away.
Yeah,
because children are used to.
Just imagine a young boy at 5 being able to make a similarity of a Volkswagen. And then it takes time.
But is that a bad thing, us embracing the new times, embracing technology, simplifying life for our children?
It makes children lazy.
Come on.
Yeah,
so you who are not lazy. I see you going creative. To the moon.
No, we can't go to the moon, but you get to realize that currently, most of these young children are a bit lazy. There are things they can't do for themselves when their parents are not available. They feel like they're out, they're not loved and everything. They can't ideally socialize with the rest. I've actually seen parents giving their children smartphones at the age of 8, 10, 6, and it's even becoming worse.
And you know how I agree with you, Sonko, is because, like you said, it limits creativity. Exactly. Personally, by like P1, I knew how to maneuver through Kampala.
Exactly.
Now, imagine the roads of those days. Right now, one of my siblings cannot. Where do I go? You want to beat them up and beat
There's
some
a van that picks them from home.
Times have changed. You were raised on struggle love. Children today are being raised not struggle love.
Didn't just call it struggle love.
So please keep your struggle love in the past. The children today are thriving and they are enjoying. But anyway, speaking about thriving, I don't know if the Speaker of Parliament is enjoying how ministers are thriving by not attending plenary. So yesterday there was an incident. The Speaker of Parliament, Anita Annette Among, had to be forced. A very beautiful morning once again. Thank you so much for joining us here on Good Morning Uganda, and of course in a special way, thank you for keeping it Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. We are coming to you live from our studios at Nile Avenue, and of course we are proud that you're here with us this morning. Now, I don't know if you're still home or you're already in your office, but one thing I know for sure is that you know that it rained all through the night. And of course, when it rains all through the night, or even for just an hour in Uganda lately, we have a problem because you'll find that roads have maybe flooded or roads are slippery, and in some places there is going to be catastrophe, like people in Kalungu who yesterday experienced some rain for 1 hour and 30 people were hurt. Houses went down, roofs went off buildings like schools. So it can be a disaster when it rains here. And of course, the Uganda National Meteorological Authority has warned that the country will experience heavy rain in the next 4 months, beginning this month. That is, so you have to prepare yourself to receive beyond normal rainfall between the months of September, October, November, and December. So if you're a lady, I think this is the time when a scarf doesn't leave your handbag. And of course, for gentlemen, move around with an umbrella. Even the lady, you need to protect that hair. But anyway, away from that, as a country, we have questions. Are we ready for this change in weather? Places that are disaster prone, ready for the change in weather? And that's where we will start. We would love for you to join this conversation through the X app, and the hashtag is UBCGMU. But of course, if you want to WhatsApp us, the number is 0709-602-592. We would love to hear your feedback regarding this. And of course, starting from the top, or I don't know, from the ground, since it's raining. So we seem surprised every time the rains start, you know. Every time we get El Nino rains are the beyond normal rains. And for some reason, for instance, the incident that happened last year in Bali, we seemed surprised and we didn't know how to help ourselves. Why is this?
Because we lack planning. That's the best reason I can think about in this case. Especially for cases where we have seen warnings come through, cases where we have had, you know, predictions, and then time comes and we don't see anything being put in place to, you know, to avert these conditions, or to even alert people, or to help them. Maybe, you know, when you look at countries like the US, when they know for sure that something is going to happen, they will even relocate you beforehand.
Prior, like when a tsunami is coming.
Thank you, beforehand.
Yes.
But here in Uganda, we are typically Africans. Tusoka kulaba. Yes, we first strip and then remember to jump.
So does this mean that the ministry that is in charge, that is the Ministry of Disaster and Preparedness, is never ready or prepared for disasters like its name?
I wouldn't say never, but unfortunately their actions speak the word never.
Then say never.
Because a number of times we have seen these disasters happen in the different areas. Talk about Bududa, talk about Kapchora,
Mbale,
you know, talk about Bulambuli,
Kasese,
Sironko, all those, you know, all those areas have had disasters over time due to change in weather conditions and climate conditions. The unfortunate bit is Tetuiga, we don't learn. We have not seen a measure being put in place to avert, like to mitigate, to avert beforehand. We've only seen interventions coming after, and of which these interventions do not even give sustainable solutions to the dwellers in these areas, and that's why we have a challenge.
So in what ways should the Ministry of Disaster and Preparedness be ready for disaster? Sorry, my diction seems a bit limited today, but that's the best way I can put it, because we get these warnings. We got a warning last month that we're going to experience heavy rains in the month of August, but we didn't. And of course, the Meteorological Authority said that sometimes they will predict, but then weather changes. Apparently, winds keep the warmth of the wind, for those who are deep into climate change, would understand that that sometimes leads to something different happening away from what was predicted prior. But the month of September seems to have started with, you know, like proving that the warning is right, that we are going to experience above normal rains. So when it comes, so this happens, we get the warnings, but how does the ministry react? Does it just listen like the rest of us? What happens?
No, at times they warn these residents. But
do they warn the residents, or they just give a statement in the newspapers?
They don't warn, by the way. They inform. They inform the residents that these are the areas that are prone to disaster in case it happens, or in case rainfalls are coming in and this happens. But again, I think they never give immediate solutions there and then. You know, you remember the times of Bududa, the case scenario in Bududa, is that government has continuously, you know, been telling or informing those who are settled around there not to settle in those areas because of the the outcomes of these heavy rains and the floodings or the landslides. But because these people prefer these soils, because of the fertility levels they have, and because of how comfortable they have become around growing up in these areas, they tend to stay. So why I'm saying that at times the government or the ministry gives information is because, you know, they do give maybe information a month before, but then they don't give them the solutions. For example, the reason as to why most of them in Bududa refused to go to Nakasongola was because the soils weren't fertile enough. Most of them were saying, you are telling us to leave Bududa and then you're taking us somewhere else, then we would rather stay here. So some of them, because of the fact that the government is not giving them, let's say, solutions that are sustainable and viable.
Also, we need to
their
note
conditions.
that these areas where these people are being moved from are their ancestral lands.
Exactly.
So government is going to move you to Nakasongola and give you maybe a 50 by 100 plot where you can put your house and a few crops. Yet probably you're living an acre or 2 or 3 back home. So it's a bit tricky. I see why at some point the government may fail to implement this because the people are going to be resistant.
That is one in a number that we can talk about. However, what makes you the government is the fact that you have a certain authority that we residents do not have. So that is why there is the law, that is why there is enforcers, that is why there is implementers of some of these things. Where people are not understanding, then you have to make them understand in the best ways possible. Now, if we have reports, I mean, yesterday there was a report of Kalungu, 30 people were injured due to weather
rains.
conditions. Yeah, there were heavy rains.
For just 1 hour.
One like this. Now, understand that, for example, okay, let's say we benchmark on Bududa, how people refuse to move. I do remember that very well. But at the end of the day, who lost? It's the people of Bududa. They lost property, they lost lives, and even their farms that they were protective of, they lost. So what does that mean? It means maybe the communication is not structured in a way that is going to convince this person to move. They have reasons that they are putting forward that are understandable. Even you as a leader, even you as a human being, you know you wouldn't want to leave your ancestral home. You wouldn't want to leave a place where you have a big chunk of land to go to a new place and start over. But then again, have they helped you understand the reason for the start over? So it goes back down to, how is this communication structured? It goes back down to, what is the plan put in place? Are you giving me the assurance and the security I need? And this time, not security of guns, and no, the security of when I leave this place, wherever I am going.
Am I going to be covered?
Am I going to be covered? Is that land even mine? Or you're putting me there, and then I'll start struggling with the people in that area for that land. So those are some of the questions that these people have. They will definitely limit these people from moving. So let's go back to, how do we structure this communication?
I also, thank you so much, because when you speak about the communication, I have problems with reading these reports in the newspapers, and the question for me is usually, okay, I've read it, me, Olive, Monica, Najuma, but is the person in Bududa, in Imbali, in Kasese,
do we have access?
Do we have, are they getting this information?
And in the best way possible.
In the best way possible, because
the
this
breakdown
is now,
of information.
Thank you.
Exactly. This is now where we get maybe members of parliament speaking to village chiefs and LC1 chairpersons. Because this is what the weatherman is saying, okay? But putting an advert on radio, maybe CBS or radio, UBC radio or Star Radio, and you think everyone has listened. I know that radio is far-reaching, okay? But at the same time, not everyone is going to listen. So put the advert on radio, on private and national radio. Then also go ahead and go to these villages and level with these people. Because incidents of us, just seeing in the news, Banange, it rained for 1 hour, and then a petrol station was washed away, and then a school was washed away. And I remember the incident in Kasese where a whole hospital was submerged when those two rivers burst their banks.
Well, also, I think you're right. Breaking down the information is important, most so in the local languages. I've come to realize that, for example, we have information that happened or that goes through the newspapers, and not everybody upcountry is willing to buy always ready to, you know, to go down and buy a newspaper to read through everything. Most of them just even look at the front pages.
No, the information in newspapers is for middle class people like you.
Okay, I should say, but at times you get to realize it's supposed to be information for everybody, because we also have local newspapers.
I like a choice of words, supposed to be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. But then also our radio stations, how do they break down this information for people? Because I've come to realize even the local radio stations, information that is just basic information about what is happening in the country, and also to report news about the disaster that has occurred.
So not in sharing information about
this is coming, that is coming.
Occur.
Let me give you an example of how this information is put out. They will come and greet you properly and let you know that people of this area, please be warned.
Or at times it even comes in an entertainment format.
Please be warned that we were expecting El Nino rains, so this means some areas are prone to floods, blah, 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 blah. The same information you're giving me who is in Kampala is the same information you're giving someone who is in Bududa, Kasese, Bulambudi, and all those districts that are usually highly affected by these weather changes. Now, what is this person supposed to do? What is your plan? As someone who is supposed to think, the truth is, these people are put in these positions to think for some of these areas and these people.
That's true. And we would like for you to join this conversation. And today we are looking into the, the oncoming rains, the weather changes. And we are asking the question, conditions. How ready is the country for the effects of the raging weather conditions? You can reach us through the X app, that is #UBCGMU, or you can WhatsApp us on 0709602592. The question again is, how ready is the country for raging weather conditions? Now, taking it away from the government, yes, we know they have to plan for the people, they need to bring the information down to the people, but for those that have lived in these areas and have an idea of what usually happens when the rains start, how best can they be prepared?
For starters, let me ask you, Olive, before we take it off the government, what I'm insisting because this is a body, this is where our eyes are. This is our father, in a way, as a whole country.
That's true.
So, you remember very well after the Bududa incident, these people were trying to be relocated, but they refused. Even after losing property, after losing family and friends, they still wanted to be in the area that could lead to the death of the next person, or even themselves.
So why were they refusing?
Because the solutions they were being given to them were not sustainable solutions.
So is it true that the solutions were non-sustainable solutions, or because they hadn't been given enough information regarding the solutions?
We can explore that, because one, someone will understand, another one will not, but also, let's go back down to, who are you talking to? And again, how are you structuring that communication to enable them understand? Government is well intended with all these interventions being put in place. But then again, how are these people receiving them? Are they receiving them from the angle of, okay, let's work with government? Or they're receiving them with this thing of, we have been coerced into this? Or they are saying we are not receiving them anyway. It doesn't make sense for you to wake up in the morning and plan for these things and for these people. And at the end of the day, you're not attaining the results from your planning. It doesn't make sense. But taking it away from the government, these people are well aware. But do note that however much we have the land question that is very well pronounced in areas of Mukono, Kampala, Mityana, and all these things, these people have land struggles as well. And in those villages, they are even worse. Please do note that most of them don't even have land titles. I just know where the other tree, are they called the tree? Like there is that plant that they usually have that demarcates, this is where your land stops, this is where mine stops. They've had this land go through families, generation after generation. You get? So how is this person going to think about leaving this place to go to another? These people have not accumulated wealth for them to even move and go buy land elsewhere in an area that is not disaster prone. So they literally live in the how can I put it, in this thing of, I have no choice, this is what I have to work with. You get? So this person is only staying because that's what they have to work with, because they cannot afford to leave and go to a place where they are safer. The most they can do is wait for government, like people of Kalungu are waiting for the government to now send some beans and maize to help the people that were, that were affected by the floods.
Yes.
That's the most that they can hope for and wait for.
Well, I think also how the people can prepare themselves is not settling in, there's a way. If you go to these mountainous areas, especially these areas that are prone to flooding and landslides, there is a way people construct houses, and you're even worried if you're just visiting. For example, someone puts up a house below a rock, and for for a moment you wonder, doesn't this person feel insecure in a way that if it rains, this rock is going to fall on,
That's
on
what
top of
But
you
see,
understand?
it's because of climate change that these rocks over the years have been now coming down onto the people. Because these areas were occupied since time immemorial, and they did not have these problems. But you see, climate change has come closer to home, and because of the effects of climate change, now areas that used to be safe, people used to stay under these rocks for years, now are encountering these problems, which also shows that as a country, because of the disasters we've had over the years, it shows that we have not taken steps necessary to be ready for the effects of climate change.
I think, and the conversations are really everywhere when it comes to how prepared can countries be to address climate change. And also, I think with the matter of fact, because many countries are now investing heavily in climate change, and the first key thing that has actually started is creating room for awareness and letting people aware of how to deal with the ever-changing weather conditions. And besides that, now, for example, when you come to think of why I did mention these settlement areas, well, you cannot maybe blame the people for creating or setting up these particular houses around these areas. But then with the ever-changing situations for now, there are circumstances that I do not want us to experience again. For example, if someone who was alive or experienced the effects of the Bududa landslides. Now, for example, if you see that is a government building, unfortunately, it also takes us back to the planning of the government.
That's the hospital that was submerged in Kasese.
So you wonder how the hospital is set up there. And of course, I think, for example, the surveyors and everybody who's behind, who's behind the government buildings, before they are set up, the contractors, these are things they need to first study.
This one looks like a river had burst its banks. And when rivers are going to burst their banks, they may not necessarily warn you. Of course, it might start with the rain. You remember the incident of Lake Victoria in 2020 when the water levels got so high, and it was the first time that happened in over 50 years.
But then people who had settled at least a few meters away weren't directly affected.
Yes.
If you're to look at what happened with Lake Victoria. Because even, the people who actually do all these construction matters have different things that they follow before you actually construct. Of course, I'm not saying people in up countries should also have to, employ all these tactics, because at times it's costly.
But they need to be informed.
But they need maybe to be informed.
There is something called risk assessment.
Yes.
Now, I would like to hail UNRWA, because over time, they have actually really taken on risk assessment. And right now, before they even construct a road, if it's fresh, they're constructing afresh, they will do a risk assessment. And this risk assessment is not of today. No, it goes years ahead.
That's true.
That means that planning bit now is being handled. So how about, now that we know, we have areas that automatically in a year, we are going to see floods in those areas. We're going to see landslides. How about we put plans, sustainable plans in place?
And not
to avert these things. No, not to act surprised. So that when that time comes, we have prepared ourselves, we have reduced the effects of climate change and weather conditions on these areas. The truth is, this brings a lot of questions on the role of the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness.
They need to give us something, like give us a degree of preparedness. Let us know that you are ready and you did these things prior. For instance, God forbid, if we're to have another landslide that might wreak havoc to an area, and if it happens and let's say the ministry knew beforehand, relocated people beforehand, then we will say other factors were beyond their control, but something was done from the beginning. I want us to look at some of the disasters that have happened over the years. And the biggest disaster was on 1st March in 2010 when a major landslide occurred on Mountain Elgon in eastern Uganda. This was triggered by heavy rains that lasted over 3 months. And these landslides buried 3 villages in Bududa district and killed over 400 people, and of course displaced almost 5,000 people. That was the major landslide. But most recently in 2020, more than 850 people were permanently displaced by landslides. Between 2008 and 2020, more than 400 major landslides have been reported in Mountain Elgon, where Bududa district is located, killing close to 1,000 people. 400 landslides reported between 2008 and 2020.
Right.
So this is where we stop acting surprised.
Thank you. That's what I was saying.
So it is a recurring.
It is a recurrence.
And that means if these cases continue to happen and we have no solutions whatsoever, more so long-term sustainable solutions, then that means we are just getting used to the situation, and we are only waiting for the landslides to happen, for government to to come out and give help. And at times even the help that happens, we've had cases, for example, from the office of the Prime Minister, where the Prime Minister herself had to go, for example, in Kasese, to make sure that these particular what are they called? I'm even forgetting the word. Let's say the mattresses and this equipment that was supposed to be given to the refugees or the people who had survived this disaster were given out and reached the people themselves. So at times you even find, even during the times of providing these solutions, it becomes hard for us to follow up. So however much we are saying we're sitting down to provide solutions, we need to also realize that if these landslides are coming in, that means every time the rains are going to come. You see, even here in Kampala, for example, when the rains are too heavy, we still see flooding here and there. Kiosks are washed away, borders are washed away. At times, even some small cars are submerged with water. So which shows that we are already in the times of climate change, but we are not yet ready to address these issues, or we are too comfortable to find sustainable solutions. Just briefly, if I'm to bring it out to the viewers, there was an annual State of Disaster report in 2020, which revealed that natural disasters caused Uganda an economic loss, which is amounting to 563 billion. So when you look at how much we lost, and this is translating to residential housing, agriculture, education. When you look at agriculture, because of the farms that were destroyed or that have actually been destroyed by natural disaster,
then the schools,
the schools that have been, the homes, hospitals,
basically
all this, the roads and bridges.
Yes.
Even just recently, the Katonga bridge, we all saw how impactful that was, more so for people or traders who are actually using a few hours from Kampala Masaka or Kampala Mbarara.
And now they had to go all through
8 hours and longer hours. So that is also affecting. That is how much you could easily see that as a government, we're only waiting for things to happen to come out with solutions. And of course, every time the solutions come later.
Chantal, hold that thought. I would like to call upon the viewer again to be part of this conversation. And today we are asking the question, how ready is the country for the effects of the raging weather conditions? How ready is the country for the effects of the raging weather conditions? And you 92, and on the X app the hashtag is UBCGMU. So please bring in your views. We would like to know, and of course your suggestions on how ready the country can be for the effects of the raging weather conditions. Chantal, you had something burning to say.
Yes, you know, these warnings for the heavy rains started in March, and the minister for disaster preparedness came out and gave and delivered information to us. Of course, named the disaster-prone areas and different disasters that were about to hit. And then also mentioned that there were 305 houses that had been constructed so far. 305.
Yes, the people that had been relocated. How many?
And of which 42 are newly constructed, and relocation of households was meant to take place by April 2023.
So now there is also another issue. We would like to, in as much as we want to castigate the government and of course the ministry for acting surprised, there is also this issue where government, and we touched on it earlier, where people are hard to convince to leave these disaster-prone areas. A case in point is the 2010 disaster that I shared. Over 3,000 people were relocated by the government to Chiriandongo district. But 13 years later, early this year, they decided to come back, and they're arguing that these are their ancestral lands. The government at the time gave each family 2.5 acres there, but they're saying that the place is they wanted to be resettled within the Bugisu sub-region. They didn't want to be taken away from that sub-region. And also their other argument is that these are their ancestral lands and that the soils the other side are not fertile. So they have been warned and they still insist on staying there, and they're saying we are ready to brace ourselves for disaster. But you cannot brace yourself for disaster, especially the disaster that happens in an area like that. Now, according to scientists, they are saying that the area is actually starting to crack. That is the warning that has been given. But these people have insisted on coming back. So I feel like around that, the government finds itself between a rock and a hard place.
When you're dealing with resistant, I was going to say violent, resistant citizens, at times it also becomes very unbearable.
Yeah.
So let's think about it.
It's a case of hands being tied.
I know.
Let's think about it like this. If you were a parent and you watched your child walk into a room blazing
with fire,
what would be like? I've told the child, but she has refused to listen.
You know, at times,
what you would do?
With you know, back in the day, in our grooming, at times they would leave you to first test it, because they know you will come back eventually.
The truth is, you realize that this is a mindset issue when it comes to these locals. Please do understand that the biggest percentage of these people are not literate. Please do understand that. So that means that, like I said,
has done its best.
But they've experienced some of these scenarios.
But
really.
What do you do when people insist on returning? Honestly,
you know,
because they have, we have had a disaster. Over 400 people have died, or actually 1,000.
And most of them have actually lost their relatives.
Exactly. Whole families have been buried. And now you you resettle them, and they decide to come back, insisting that this is, you know, we have this attachment on land, ancestral land. So they are back. You've done your best as government. They are back. Scientists are saying these places are starting to crack, and the more rain we get, the more landslides are going to be triggered. What do you do?
Let's weigh our options right now.
Yeah.
You are government, and you are seeing your people putting themselves in the arc of fire, and on the other hand, you have the ability to actually close off the place and make it, how come people don't have easy access to game parks? They are gazetted. They are told they are not supposed to be there, and there is security put there not to be there.
But you know why they partly don't go there? Because the game parks have wild animals. You see but
there is security. There is security that is also put to man those places to ensure that people are not just entering and getting out anyhow. What am I trying to say? If the worst comes to the worst, let's close and gazette these places.
Actually, government was supposed to gazette these places by planting trees. Because if you leave the area unoccupied and open, obviously people are going to come back for resettlement.
Yes, thank you. So let's gazette these places. I'm trying to show you that if you are a parent, you have to do whatever it takes to save your child, who in their mind does not see that what they are doing has an effect on their own life. If you met your child holding a cup of poison, you would have to do everything it takes to make sure that that cup of poison doesn't get to their lips for them to take it. That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, the people you're dealing with are adamant, raised different thinking. Now, let me ask you, the people in the US that have cemeteries, for example, how do you, they're not emotionally attached to this is our ancestral home. Someone will wake up in the morning and sell where they grew up. What am I trying to say? What is most important? Is it your ancestors and your ancestral home?
But you see, like some of the people that were recently interviewed after they returned to Bududa said they lost their parents in the 2010 landslide, but they decided to come back because the land was there and free. Which takes us back to government gazetting these areas, planting trees and putting in place stringent measures to ensure that people do not return. I hear you.
At the end of the day, if these very same people are the ones who are going to blame government for not doing anything, if government actually does not go ahead and put such stringent measures to make sure they do not go back. Like
so
I said,
at some point,
they have to deal with this as if they are dealing with their children.
Yes.
And they have to restrain them.
Sometimes
that is the
they
absolute
have to
truth.
dictate.
That is the absolute truth.
I have a few views coming in from our viewers, and the first one says, "Good morning, Uganda. I'm Asaba James from Fort Portal. My suggestion is relocation of masses, mostly in swampy areas, so as to reduce on death rates. Government officials are more of theory. Just keep on radio stations not coming on ground." You see what we're mentioning earlier, or go to the ground and talk to the people. Don't just put the ad that we are going to experience more rains.
I told you how they structure their information. They're informing you and nothing more than that.
And some people don't really care. Actually, you have to also understand your demographics. What people am I talking to? What is their education background? What are their cultural beliefs? Which age brackets are we talking about? Because some people are going to hear this ad on radio and they will say, tisa. They're just trying to scare us off. They want to take our land. There is also that. So if there isn't enough information dissemination, like you go to the grassroots and talk to these people, we are going to experience the same issues over and over again. I have another comment coming through, and he says government is not serious. Buy off these people's lands, gazette this as a forest, force them out to go buy land somewhere else as they may want. And another one says, morning to viewers, I suggest that the government should strongly fight with those those people building in swampy areas. Menya Amis in Uganda Municipality, Igamba Village. Thank you, Menya. And the next one says, thank you so much for the vision to help me, the mission of God. I need to, I think this message went to the wrong number. But thank you so much for your views. We appreciate you for keeping it UBC. Good morning, Uganda. We will take a short break and we'll be right back.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Uncle, you should see London.
Oh, my boy. This has been 5 years. You should see Uganda.
Yes. Uncle Marcus, huh? This money for my school.
See, soon there will be more than 1 million children learning like this for free.
This is impressive. Do you even have connection out here?
Well, we have 100% 4G countrywide.
Okay.
We even have 5G too.
That's approximately 700 billion Uganda shillings in tax, making Airtel one of the largest corporate income taxpayers over the last 5 years, helping build a better Uganda.
Today your son saw our new Uganda.
Thank you, Uganda, for imagining it with us and making us the fastest growing telecom in the country over the past 5 years.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
This weekend on UBC.
I was in Hong Kong, and as she's closing her eyes praying, I walked in and just sat in front of her. She felt the power of God fall upon her, and God told her, your husband is in front of you. So she opens her eyes and sees me, and I'm black, and she says, no.
In Germany, sometimes some people are a bit like low-key racist.
We who went there for the wedding in Cape Verde, we had a problem with that language barrier, and you put on a kanzu, they ask you why you're putting on a dress.
But the main issue is God. You have to pray.
And the cultural difference between Asia and Africa is far stretched.
If you understand someone despite them being white or African, something can work out.
It's easy to adjust to European cultures, easy to adjust to American culture, because this is what you're seeing.
Not been much of Asia.
Not much of Asia. Their culture is quite different.
In Africa, there is this male-dominated world that where women are all restricted solo.
God told me, you need to stay in Hong Kong. And she was there. She said, I believe you'll bless my city.
This weekend on UBC.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
It is now time for the Good Morning Uganda Business Update. Good morning again, and many thanks for sticking with us this cold morning and making a deal to wake up with the team here as we inspire your mornings. I'm Joram Paul Sonko. Now it's time for me to give you updates from the business that is coming in through this particular morning. Now, we're going to start from the African continent, where the African Development Bank has launched $996 million funding for African startups. I think Ugandans are also big on tech startups, if I should say. But then how do we tap into this particular one? Now, the FDB president, Akinwumi Adesina, made his remarks during the second day of the Africa Climate Summit, which was held in Nairobi at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. That is Nairobi. Now, when you look at what is actually being highlighted is that the African Development Bank, in partnership with the Global Center on Adaptation, committed $996.6 million US to support youth startups in the continent as part of the fight against climate change. Of course, that means anyone who's coming up with startups that will be fit for, to address climate change matters, then here is an opportunity. Now, this initiative is to finance youth-led business startups, and of course, the capital infusion will empower young entrepreneurs across Africa. And the African Development Bank looks at this as an exciting step towards economic growth, according to what the president, Mr. Adesina, had to reveal. Now, when you look at the same issue, this is critical in fostering growth and also creating a stability or sustainable agenda that will address climate change on the entire African continent. And of course, you can look at the fruits of the climate place in Nairobi in Kenya, and that is where we are getting to this particular one, where entrepreneurs or youth entrepreneurs will be supported greatly. Now let's get back to Uganda, still with the GMU business update. This one is relating to the Uganda Revenue Authority, or what the Taxman is initiative with the digital stamps. If you're to look at just 2 years back when the digital stamps were, were brought up by Uganda Revenue Authority to track, quite a number of goods were gazetted on the market, especially the beverages that were first gazetted. When you look at this, manufacturers and importers of sizable goods under the digital tax stamps regime increased by 23.3% in the period which ended June this very year, according to details that were contained in the Uganda Revenue Authority half-year performance report for the calendar year 2023. Now, the report, which highlights performance of different tax heads to June, noted that the continued implementation of digital tracking solutions, that is the DTS, among them digital stamps and enforcement, had supported URA to onboard more new taxpayers and improve on the tax declarations, and to make sure that Uganda Revenue Authority also tracks down on tax evasion in the country. Now, the digital tax stamp register currently has 894 clients. Those are the registered clients, as Uganda Revenue Authority continues to make sure that they mobilize for more taxes, and to ensure that they also broaden or expand Uganda's tax base. But when you further look at it, URA is conducting more inspections to bring in more so that the number or the register from 894 clients that are registered for the digital tax stamps can increase to arguably maybe 1,000, that is before the year closes, or even above that same mark. Now, this is expected to result in 2 more local excise duty registration and better declaration, still according to this report from the Uganda Revenue Authority. Now, the 23.3% represents an onboarding of at least 209 manufacturers and importers from 685 in 2022 to 2023, where we are currently in. Now, in 2022, URA reported that the compliance under excisable goods had increased, supporting the tax agency to register a 21% increase in onboarding of new taxpayers from 364 to 545 manufacturers and 140 importers in the country. So by the look of things, the manufacturers under the tax stamps have grown by 23% in the first half of the year 2023. So who knows, maybe by the end of this year, the growth may cease to be 23 and grows to maybe roughly 25 or even more. Now, lastly, from the GMU business update this morning, we take a look at the forex market as a closer look at how the currencies were trading in Ugandan shillings by close of business Wednesday. Now, the US dollar at the opening time was buying at 3,724.71 shillings, while selling at 3,734.71 shillings. Then it closed at 3,725.08 shillings, and that is for the selling then was at 3,735.08 shillings. Now the Great Britain pound was buying at 4,687.26 shillings, while selling at 4,699.85 shillings. Then the euros was buying at 3,999.24 shillings, while selling at 4,009.98 shillings. Now the Kenyan shilling buying at 25.51 shillings, while selling at 25.58 shillings. The Tanzanian shillings, on the other hand, buying at 1.48 Ugandan shillings, while selling at 1.49 Ugandan shillings. The South African rand buying at 194.39 shillings, while selling at 194.91 shillings. Of course, that was as close of business yesterday. Before we head to the traffic updates as well, a look back at the local dailies from Uganda of what is making headlines across the East African region. Now, in the New Vision today, UNEB Senior 4, Senior 6 timetable out. The detailed timetable is inside in today's copy of the New Vision. Then there is also a pictorial of President Museveni as he was closing the Uganda-South African summit in Munyonyo yesterday. And of course, you can definitely see more of what the president highlighted in his speech yesterday to the investors of both Uganda and South Africa. Then furthermore in the politics, why Bobi Wine attacked Nandala. Is more of that in the New Vision today. Then General Moses Ali asks UK to pay Nubians. Why does he ask this and more in the New Vision? Now the Daily Monitor in today's edition, National Drug Authority locked away as AIDS drug was fed to animals. That is the headline in the Daily Monitor today. Bobi Wine asks Biden and the European Union to defund Uganda. Why did he make these comments? The Daily Monitor gives you more details. Now, the FDC saga, Dr. Besigye now backs bidding war conference. There is a report on that in the Daily Monitor. Then absentee ministers frustrate Parliament. Daily Monitor gives you more details. Now, in the other news, UNEB issues timetable for final examinations as Makerere is set to probe the Balokole discrimination claim. Now, crossing over the borders of Uganda, we look at what the Daily Nation is having at the front pages. The Africa Climate Summit 2023, What Africa Wants, is the headline from the Daily Nation today in Kenya. Then ODM party rebels pay hefty price as Raila cracks down the whip. Still the Daily Nation in Kenya highlighting more of that. Now varsity funding, the CS extends deadline for loan application. Still the Daily Nation in Kenya highlights more of that. You can get more of the same. Then the Nairobi Declaration, after 3 days of intense discussions, the inaugural African Climate Summit has taken a huge leap of faith and is now seeking to assert the continent's strong voice in resolutions to global climate challenges. More of that with the Daily Nation. Now lastly, from our press review, across the region, the Citizen in Tanzania highlights East Africa facing harsh fuel reality. Which fuel reality is that? There is a full story and report of that in the Citizen today. Now, the Dar es Salaam Mombasa gas pipeline project shows signs of life. The Citizen gives you more of that. Now, in the Business Week, growth. The East African Business Council is said to up intra-regional trade by 40% in 5 years. Now, international geopolitics. China warns against new Cold War, as in the investment news, mortgage refinancing firm gets shot in the arm. Now, 7 African presidents are set to discuss food supply at the GRF. Then also a story on why banks hold key to cashless economy. Well, that's it for the press review. Now it's time for our traffic updates this morning.
Well, thank you, Sonko, for that press review. It gives us an insight into the top stories that we should look out for, especially in the business world. But of course, overall, what are the papers saying? And I welcome you again to Good Morning Uganda. Time for traffic updates. My name is Olive Monica Najuma. Now, if you are coming through from the areas of Makindi, the areas of Entebbe Road, and of course, going to Katwe, going to Chibuye going to Masaka Road, I want us to start from this roundabout right here. And as you can see, there is a huge traffic coming in from the road that comes from Makindye, that's around Prayer Palace, onto the roundabout. And of course, when we take a look at the Kampala-Entebbe Road, we see deep red zones coming all the way from Najanankumbi, feeding into the roundabout at Chibuye. Now, also, if you look at the road that goes to Lubiri, there is still huge traffic coming through, and all of this traffic is feeding into the roundabout. So it's going to be intense there, and of course we know that when it rains, traffic in this city becomes a menace. But now I want us to pay more attention to the road that goes through Katwe and around Muganziraza building. Around there is some bit of traffic that is coming off the roundabout, but as you move along, you're going to find in some places smooth flow of traffic, and then in others orange zones that are indicative of traffic that is starting to build up. And of course, if we're to look at the feeder roads that are feeding into this road, like Kaemba Road, there is huge traffic coming in from Lubiri Ring Road and going on to that intersection at Kaemba Road and then feeding into Katwe Road. Now, as far as Katwe Road is concerned, there is mostly orange zones, which indicate that yes, there is some bit of a traffic buildup, but you will be able to move. It won't hold you up like what we saw coming from Entebbe Road. Now, looking at Mutebi Road, that is also feeding into Katwe Road, there is an orange zone there feeding into that intersection, and then of course it goes into the main road. Now, when we go to the roundabout that has Usafi Market, you're going to find orange zones that are indicative of growing traffic, but also red zones and deep red zones, which indicate that here the holdup is quite intense. And it comes from roads like Kafumbe Mkasa Road, and of course the road that passes by Usafi Market, and of course going into around the areas of the Uganda Police Fire Brigade Station around Nachivubo Blue Primary School. So if you're going that side of town, you should know that the road is going to keep you, the traffic on this road is going to keep you held up for some time. And as we move along going into the areas of Nakasero, yes, there is traffic zones somewhere, as you can see there. There are some red zones up there, and around Dasta Street, around Nakasero Mosque, and of course around Dasta Street again behind Namaganda Plaza. So you need to know that yes, in some parts of town the traffic is intense. So if that's where you're going, maybe you can look at using feeder roads, because some of them actually don't look as bad as the main road. Now, if we are to look into the areas of the middle of town around William Street, we will find that around Kampala Road, around Crane Chambers, you're going to find that, yes, there is traffic there. There are red zones which indicate that traffic there is on a standstill, but also behind there, you're going to find, still along Kampala Road, you're going to find that there are orange zones which indicate that yes, you will be moving, but not as fast as you may want to. But other feeder roads within the city, like Parliamentary Avenue, look clear. So if that's where you're going, you're in luck. But the areas around Christ the King Church are quite, there is a hold up there, so you can plan accordingly. Now, going back into Kampala Road, as we move along, yes, it shows that today everyone is on this road. So you're going to have to be patient, because you will be held up there. So when I look at when I have a general view of the entire city around Buganda Road, around Coach Towers, still around along Kampala Road, it shows that there is traffic holdup pretty much on every road. So I think this is as a result of course, the morning rain. So yes, you need to know as you enter the city that things may not be as easy for you do, you have to have some time that is going to be wasted in traffic, because when I look at places like Watoto Church downtown, that is next to Bombo Road, it still shows that the traffic is building up in some areas, and of course it becomes intense in others. That's it for the traffic updates this morning. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and before I sign off for this session, that tonight the president of this country, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, will be addressing the nation, and the address will be on all TVs and radio stations. So tune in at 8 p.m. and he will be addressing the nation on matters of national security and other issues. Thank you for watching.
Of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
This weekend on UBC.
I was in Hong Kong, and as she's closing her eyes praying, I walked in and just sat in front of her. She felt the power of God fall upon her, and God told her, your husband is in front of you. So she opens her eyes and sees me, and I'm black, and she says, no.
In Germany, sometimes some people are a bit like low-key racist.
We who went there for the wedding in Cape Verde, we had a problem with that language barrier, and you put on a kanzu, they ask you why you're putting on a dress.
But the main issue is God. You have to pray.
And the cultural difference between Asia and Africa is far stretched.
If you understand someone despite them being white or African, something can work out.
It's easy to adjust to European cultures, easy to adjust to American culture, because this is what you're seeing.
Not been much of Asia.
Not much of Asia. Their culture is quite different.
In Africa, there is this male-dominated world that where women are all restricted solo.
God told me, you need to stay in Hong Kong. And she was there. She said, I believe you'll bless my city.
This weekend on UBC.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret? Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM? Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk. No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving. Juko. I thought I was one of your friends. You are. But you left me behind. I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Previously, in most of these areas that we had prioritized, farmers would produce, but you don't access market because the roads are not there. So you have the middlemen that would have access, and they persevere to go into those deep in the villages, and they buy with their own prices. They'll go there and set prices for you, and yet you're the ones who are producing this food. But now this time with the market linkages, people can now access market because we have bridges that were, streams that were bottlenecks to access by the farmers. It has constructed bridges, so farmers can now reach market.
Actually, Zono Industrial is one of the presidential initiatives which is brought here in Acholi land to skill our youth. The skilling is free of charge. What you really need, you have to be within the age of 18 to 35. They don't need any requirements apart from being willing. You have to be willing, and a youth who is willing to get the skills. The courses we have started with only 4. That is tailoring, hairdressing, carpentry, and welding. First intake, we registered 212 students from 10 administrative units of Acholi. These students, they recruited them from different districts within the Acholi sub-region. If we continue with this cooperation, many beneficiaries will pass through us, and they will go with enough skills, unknown skills, which will change them and later bring them into money economy. We shall really fight poverty in that way.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Morning to you this cold Thursday morning. Hoping you're fine wherever you are and you're watching UBC TV. Well, we all know we have 2 rainy seasons, and it's not a shock that it is raining because you have the March to May, then of course you have the August all the way to December. And weather experts from the meteorological department already told us that we are going to be having rains and serious rains. Now, when you talk about rains, for people who move through Kampala, one thing that comes to your mind is, how am I going to get to work? Sometimes the roads are a challenge as well. And today I want to look at Kampala roads, or the state of Kampala roads amidst heavy downpours. And of course, there we'll be having Kampala Capital City Communications Manager, KCCA, and that is Simon Kasiyate, who is with me, but on phone, on his way to work. First, I want to appreciate him for allowing, amidst all things, so that at least we have something for the public to get to know. Simon Kasiyate, good morning, and thank you for being part of this show this morning.
Thanks. Good morning, Mr. Chiravo. I wish to correct 1 or 2 things in your introduction, which I think is very good. We appreciate. 1, I am not on my way to work. I am at work.
Oh, good.
I don't want you to create the impression that KCCA opens when all of you open. No, we open a lot earlier. We don't actually close. We are already at work. So let's get that right.
Okay.
Number 2, I have to say it's a pleasure being on the program and having to discuss this very important issue of how to navigate through city roads. And I think it should be whether it rains or it shines, because I think some people may find challenges in both seasons.
Now, Simon, begin by giving us an overview of what these roads are like, because some time back, we were informed that you received money to improve the situation of our roads in Kampala.
If there are viewers watching you from the axis that starts on what we call Port Bay Road, or the road that connects from Nakawa all the way via Bukorobi to Chitindare, Luzira, and connecting to Chirombe, or those who are watching you from areas like Mitpakas, Internal Affairs, Ministry of Works, they will tell you without a fear of contradiction that they are seeing quite a lot of movement in terms of reconstruction of Port Bay Road, Old Port Bay Road, and Spring Roads. These roads are part of the bigger project which we call the Kampala City Roads Rehabilitation Project, financed by the African Development Bank, that started in earnest in February of this year. This project is supposed to last in between 30 to 36 months, and it's going to have a rehabilitation and reconstruction of close to 33 roads, translating into about 70 kilometers of roads around the city. Now, you will appreciate that when we talk about 70 kilometers of roads in the city, those are many roads. You are situated on Nile Avenue as UBC. Nile Avenue is about 2 kilometers, but it's a very long road. So you can imagine if you have 35 Nile Avenues, that would translate into 70 kilometers plus. So there's quite a lot of activity that we've set out in 5 lots spread across all the 5 divisions. We have like lot 1 where we've had works begun on Mubende Road. We are almost laying the first layer of bitumen on Mubende Road, which is somewhere around Busega. It will be connecting into roads into Rungu Church, Tunzi, and areas of that nature. We also have roads in matching division like Kavega Road as part of Lot 1, which have already received the full spectrum of tarmac on them. We still have roadworks that are within the preliminary stages of construction, like along Salama Road, which is a terribly debilitated road, and that's going to be reconstructed, fitted with incredible furniture that includes pedestrian walkways, cycling lanes, street lighting, signalization of junctions. We'll be having roadside markets. We'll be having public toilets as part of the grand project of Kampala Capital City Roads Rehabilitation Project. So this project is in earnest. It's going on. You'll also appreciate that around the Nakawa area, Spear Motors Junction, there is a lot of work going on that junction, which is part of our projects with the Japanese Technical Services, or JICA as we want to call it, where we're going to have an improvement of over 20 junctions in the city and the removal of 11 roundabouts that have for the most part contributed to the traffic gridlock that we witnessed in the city. Some of these roundabouts include Mulago, Kubiri, that one which is near Pastor Kakande's church.
Yes.
Then you also have the Mulago mortuary roundabout, still near Pastor Kakande's church. You also have the Mulago one, which is next to First Pharmacy. Those 3 roundabouts will certainly go as part of this project. We'll also have the roundabout around Standard Chartered Bank, close to Grand Imperial Hotel, and the one on the upper side of Grand Imperial Hotel and Renzori Towers, Renzori Courts. Those roundabouts are also going to go to allow for signalized junctions, the way you see the mosaic of traffic moving around Golf Course Hotel. So there's quite a lot of works going on in terms of reconstruction and putting in place new road infrastructure. That's not to mention routine maintenance that we have been doing on some sections of our roads where we've seen some patchworks on potholes. We remain with the challenge of completing the patchworks on potholes because it's a going concern. There will not be a moment where we'll have all the potholes patched at the same time. We move in a syndicated manner because, of course, we are constrained by a number of conditions, including and not limited to finances. So there is quite a lot of construction work going on in the city. The city is a huge construction site. You know that the lower side of the city is still going through the vagaries of the clock tower improvement works. And as soon as we're done with that, we'll be coming to this other side of Kitkum House Junction as part of the bigger project. So there's a lot of work going on in the city.
Well, like you said, there's a lot of work going on, but to people who use the roads in Kampala, it seems this is just a drop in an ocean, and sometimes the credit may be hard to give to you because, for example, when you look at what happens in a city when it rains, one would call them, it is temporary stagnation, but this is something that we feel like Kasiate for ages we failed to do away with it.
Mr. Chirago, I want us to speak with honesty and introspection as city dwellers. First, let us agree that our city can only be as good as we, the citizens that live in it. If for you, Chirago, you have made it a personal objective to drink from a plastic bottle and you throw it out of your window so that it's taken by flowing water into the next drainage channel, that you will pick your garbage from home and rather than dispose it in the designated places, you choose to throw it in the next mwara that you find. These activities have a ripple effect on how the flow of water in the city when it rains will become. I have shared with you graphic pictures of the kind of garbage and all sorts of refuse that we find in our drainage channels. It's not that our city does not have adequate drainage channels. It does, but we are clogging them up by putting in place a mbera or throwing garbage all over the place indiscriminately in a manner that is so wanton. KCCA can only do so much in terms of cleaning after you have messed it. If only we've introspected as citizens and behaved like people who live in a city. I have said this severally. It is one thing to hold KCCA to the highest scrutiny of accountability. And please, I encourage everyone to hold us the highest scrutiny of accountability. But you as an individual city dweller, what are you doing in terms of a video went viral not long ago of some folks downtown in Nachimbo's channel pouring kilograms upon kilograms of plastic waste and under the watch of a police officer in uniform. That happens every single day, except that this particular incident was caught on camera. That's what we citizens are doing to our own city. So we are choking it ourselves and then turn around and come and blame an institution like KCCA. Secondly, this city of ours, I have already said, is a beautifully set city on undulating hills. Of course, for every hill, there is a valley, and for the most part of our valleys, there are swamps and waterways that lead our water right into Lake Victoria, which happens to be close to us. Look around and see what we have done to these catchment areas, the wetlands and the swamps. We have built in them, we have encroached in them, and so the water has no waterway and filter mechanism as it should have done naturally. So what happens is, when it rains for 5 minutes, it will flood for the next 2 hours. Why? Because the water has nowhere to go. Nchinawataka swamp is one of the 9 catchment swamps that should drain water out of Kampala. You use your drone cameras as UPC and take aerial pictures of what has happened to that swamp. I can tell you without a fear of contradiction that the Ministry of Lands noted that they have 63 freehold titles in that swamp. And there is construction work going in there. There are warehouses that have been set up there. There are factories that have been set up there. There are homes that have been set up in the Chinawataka swamp. So you expect that rain coming from Chireka Hill, Chambogo Hill, Mbuya Hill, will certainly not block sections of Ginger Road? Certainly, it will.
Now, two things here, Simon, that you've mentioned.
I conclude this point, Chirago. I know I'm normally shut up when I begin to speak to the core of your behavior as citizens. You always want not to be blamed, but to blame KCCA. Now, putting it to the doorstep of Kampala, you are contributing over 50% of the mess that you see today. KCCA cannot always act as the fire brigade.
Now,
not at all.
Okay, Simon, you began by talking about the issue of poor disposal of garbage. Two things here. One, what has KCCA done to avail trash cans or areas where people can dispose of garbage? I want to take you back. Previously, you had deposit centers where someone would either drive with garbage from their home and you had someone who manned this area. They would put rubbish there, they would put garbage there. Then you had a vehicle that comes and takes this. You went in for tendering. Now garbage is so very expensive for people to dispose of because one company came, either paid money, won a tender or something. Now it's charging people exorbitant amounts of money that they can't afford, and they will not be with this garbage along them. Now when you talk about construction, who authorizes construction in this city? That is KCCA. When you choose not to do your work or sleep on duty, then later you know that automatically the evil-minded will continue. So all these, I see that you have a greater role to do. Not saying we don't have personal responsibility, but as KCCA.
Thank you very much. Now I will answer you in the following. Number one, it is not true that there are no garbage collection centers. You, Chirabo, where you come from in Bwaise, where your mother stays, ask her. There are no places in the neighborhoods where you put your garbage and on designated days, a KCCA truck or one of our concessionaires will come and pick it up at least twice a week. Those designated places are known in neighborhoods. Let us not act like we do not know these places. Number one. Number two, KCCA has a total of 22 garbage collection trucks of the highest technical specifications. We had 12. We recently added a new fleet of 10. We put them on the road, work across all the 5 divisions. Our target, of course, is to have a lot more. But from the resources we have 22 to service 5 divisions. That means averagely every division is serviced by 4 KCCA trucks. That's not to mention that we have got 5 sub-concessionaires for garbage collection across the city that are main, and those 5 also have sub-concessionaires out. That's when you hear of organizations such as Nabugabo Abdil, BNIT, and all the others scattered across the city and offering this very vital.
Those are the problem.
Offering this vital service. You talk about affordability, and that's what I keep telling you. Chirabo, sometimes when I make these comments, people say, oh, Simon is being insolent and is not being considerate. And I can tell you without a fear of contradiction. If you can generate garbage, you can generate money enough to dispose it off. Or at least you must have the personal responsibility to do so. I do not agree to the notion that it is too expensive for someone to pay a minimum fee to have their garbage properly disposed of than to carry it and throw it in the next Mwara. That is certain, and yet we know for the most part the KCCA trucks take it for free. Let us not try to do this populist talk of, oh, Omuntu Wawansi. You are in Kampala city. Talking about Omuntu Wawansi is a subject that speaks on the side of politics, trying to run away from personal responsibility. That Omuntu Wawansi eats. That Omuntu Wawansi generates garbage. That Omuntu Wawansi also would like to have a good environment, and they owe it themselves to provide it.
But you let the Omuntu Wawansi, Simon.
We have provided, especially in the CBD, small little garbage bins in different places. I will give an example. Right outside the UBC gate, there is a garbage bin that was put there. Go there right now and see what became of it. It was vandalized and stolen. We had to improvise by creating one made out of concrete. Right outside your gate, where you have got policemen and other security apparatus guarding the national broadcaster. Who steals these items? Who vandalizes them? Do people come from the DRC or South Sudan to come and vandalize installations of KCC in Kampala? I will give sorry, I'm going to digress a little bit. Right outside the UBC gate are 4 street lights vandalized from solar panels, bulbs to batteries down. You have an arrangement of security across your perimeter warfare. You are neighboring the Parliament of Uganda. You are neighboring Crescent Towers that houses the European Union delegation in Kampala. But people, you Ugandans, we Kampalans, come and vandalize and steal installations of strategic importance to the well-being of ourselves in the city. And afterwards, you turn around and blame KCCA. Fair enough, we take the blame, no doubt. But as citizens, we ought to be honest about our behavior and love and protect our own installations when they are. Who gives permission to people to build in wetlands? Without a doubt, KCCA should take a blame because we make approvals of construction in the different parts of the city. But also, let's be honest about ourselves, Mr. Chirau. Don't you know that there are people in this town who operate and work almost above the law? That you go to construction sites as an enforcement officer of KCCA and find it guarded by the National Army, the UPDF, and you are denied access? Haven't we had our enforcement officers even beaten on duty? These stories are out there. Who are these people that operate above the law? Who are these people that come and park on the Green Island opposite UBC when there's enough parking on the roadside? Until we speak truth to power to ourselves and say, as a society, we need to introspect and begin to respect ourselves and respect the rules that we put in place. Then can you turn around and start blaming institutions? KCCA can only do so much. And we don't work in an island. We work with other government agencies. Don't we have the National Environment Management Authority? When they find someone pouring marram in a wetland, don't they have, matter of fact, NEMA should have a police, an environmental police.
It is there.
Have it?
It is there.
In the law, it is provided for in the NEMA Act that they must have an environmental police. Is it there? No. We have an enforcement agency, for example, Wildlife Authority. They have got an armed wing. You don't just go poaching in a national park or doing maneno in national parks. You find armed guards there because the Uganda Wildlife Authority, by law established, has been provided with an armed wing. NEMA is supposed to have that. Is it in place? No.
We have the environmental police. It is in place, Simon.
Where?
There is an entire environment protection unit.
Thank you very much. So, is it under the command of KCCA?
Definitely not.
KCCA law enforcement officers are at most armed with a small little plastic baton. What can that do in the face of an encroacher who is being guarded by the National Army?
But there are also allegations of corruption, Simon, that in my area, if a poor person is setting up one room, it is very easy for KCCA to come and stop that construction, take the wheelbarrows, arrest people. But when we see these big buildings come up, then we don't see the same force being applied. And this, the public alludes to your staff, you people being corrupt.
For every allegation that is made, someone ought to prove beyond reasonable doubt. I will not comment on allegations that are almost bordering on bad talk, as you'd call it, Bozes Amarwa. If anyone has credible information showing that a staff member or an enforcement officer of KCCA has been involved in corruption, please bring it forward. We will deal with them with the brute of the law within our no holds barred and zero tolerance to corruption. But we cannot sit here and, yes, without a doubt, there are allegations upon allegations of all sorts of corruption. But the evidence and the proof of which is never seen. So you cannot just go and start reprimanding someone. You will be the same people saying, but why are you reprimanding someone without the presence of incriminating evidence? So we cannot work on hearsay. Please provide us with this information of any KCCA staff that is involved in acts of corruption, and we will deal with them without a doubt. But needless to mention, when you talk about big buildings coming up and there is no brute force from KCCA to stop the construction, I just alluded to that. These big buildings that are coming up, you know what happens at those construction sites. Who guards them? Who provides access? We may have the legal access to stop them or even rein in on them. But when we go in the field, you have no idea what we face out there.
Let's go to the obvious, Simon. Okay, we can excuse you for the buildings, and of course, we know the name behind and all this protection. These are things that all Ugandans have come to understand, and we see, even just when you're driving on our roads, you see someone, the way they are driving, and you look at their number plates and all that. But let's look at the quality of work being done by KCCA. You talked about the roads being worked on. You talked about maintenance. But sometimes, Simon, it beats our understanding, speaking from an ordinary man's perspective. You just come, cut a piece of some road, then put some soil, then after 3 weeks you're at the same point again, doing the same thing again. Quality of work, there's no longevity, there's no, you're doing things that are not durable, shoddy in one way or the other. You work at, I'll give you a certain road. If you come to March India from, you know, that calendar, from around that roundabout of the traffic lights, going all the way to connect to Salama Road. Just it was worked on a few days.
You cross through Salama Road, go up to Mirambis or joining Entebbe Road.
Yes,
I know that road.
It is one time you bring a grader, then put some bit of maram, the next thing it is still the same, some in the worst state. What is happening? What happens then? Would we say that we don't see with our own naked eyes?
That's a very beautiful question and a good observation, Mr. Chirabo. Without a doubt, there are concerns around the quality of work that's being done, especially when it comes to road repairs. But we are shackled as KCCA on two fronts, Mr. Chirabo. There is this famous campaign from one of the telecom companies that says, "Wonaba Gavane." Here you are with 10 million shillings that can only do a very good work on 2 kilometers. But you have 30 kilometers that are bad. Do you deploy all the 10 on 2 kilometers and do a thorough job? Or do we just do some patchworks and at least cover 28 kilometers of the spoiled 30 kilometers? So sometimes it's about Wonaba. At least let us do some remedial works on a wider area as we wait for more money to create a semblance of even a better work. So it is how we are cutting the available resource envelope to meet the need at hand. Otherwise, it's not in KCCA's interest to see roads debilitate and degenerate under our watch. No. I have told you repeatedly that when we have asked for 100 billion in a financial year for road rehabilitation, because we monitor these roads every single day. We have road monitoring units across our 5 divisions. We know our need. We carry out a budget assessment. We present our budgets to the Ministry of Finance. We present our budget needs through Parliament. And when it comes to the allocation, you get a fraction of what you asked for. In the recent financial years, we got about 20% of what we asked for. Frankly speaking, 20% can only do so much. And that's why we are where we are. There needs to be a concerted realization that Kampala is the sitting room of this country. It's the postcard image of this beautiful country called Uganda. And therefore, there must be affirmative action from government in terms of resource allocation for infrastructure development. And until that is done, Mr. Chirabo and viewers and listeners, there is only so much KCCA can do. You're putting us in a boxing ring with Mike Tyson as our opponent, and our hands are tied to our back. If you do not unshackle KCC and give it the resources it has repeatedly asked for, there is only so much we can do. So my appeal and our constant appeal through, and our executive director has been very intentional in making this appeal and has actually done the legwork. If you notice some activities, she has moved from stakeholder to stakeholder, making this case, Parliament, the presidency, everywhere, and said, people, can we give a bigger resource envelope to KCC for us to be able to meet at least the bare minimum of what is expected of us in terms of infrastructure development? I mean, you know that Madam Kisaka is spearheading what she has termed, rightly so, as the smart city agenda, where you have to leverage technology, build incredible infrastructure, both for people's well-being. But this can only be achieved if there is enough resource to achieve it. It cannot just be a slogan. It cannot just be a plan on the shelf. It has to be actuated with financing. So, Mr. Chirau, for until we are financed adequately, there is only so much we can do as an authority running this city. The plans are here. The human resource is motivated. The leadership is at its very best. But what lacks is the financing.
Well, my viewers, you can be able to ask or interact with Simon Kasiyati from Kampala Capital City Authority as the spokesperson on the number on your screen. Please send me a text message, send me a WhatsApp message on that number, and I'll be reading it out. And Simon will be able to answer to any question you raise or concern. Now, good morning, UBC. My name is Richard. Kindly inquire from Mr. Kasiyati. Is Buwambo Mpelere Road still on their plan? Simon.
Yes, Buwambo Mpelere Chiti is on our radar. It is going to be part of the Kampala City Roads Rehabilitation Project. You know, it came in as an addendum. It was not on the original plan because the plan had to cover certain kilometers of road and it was not one of them. But a decision was made that rather than, as part of the project, to buy 50 eco-friendly buses, would rather use that money to improve on other roads. And there were 3 roads that were earmarked to benefit from this change of user fees. That's Chiti Buwambo Mpelere Road, the road that connects from Chira Road down the valley into Kamocha, close by the party headquarters of our good friends of Nu. And then the road that comes from Ntinda Light by the Ntinda Market, connecting up to the Kisasi Northern Bypass Junction. Those 3 roads are on our radar. What we are carrying out now is engagements to start the procurement process for a contractor. We are looking at 3 ways of contracting them, either to do open international bidding or to try and increase the scope of some of the contractors that are already working on the other 5 lots, or better still, to give it to a local contractor. So those are discussions that are still going on with the various stakeholders, but we believe that probably by the end of this year, we will have the contracting process starting, and then we begin the roadworks in 2024 in earnest.
Now, one says, hello, Mr. Kasiyati, there is a petrol station which is being constructed on Wukesa Hoima Road. They removed the pavers and put some funny cement. Well, someone I think is just reporting an incident there. But also Simon, as...
yeah, we take note of that. I will certainly pass on this information to our colleagues in the Physical Planning and Engineering Directorate so that they can swing in action and ensure that there is proper adherence to the regulations that govern the construction of such infrastructure in the city.
But also, Simon, there have been claims, much as you talked about having a really squeezing budget, that KCCA, you have your priorities not right at any one time. That when you get money, instead of looking at what are the priority areas, you end up spending money on things that are not a priority. For example, one looked at the cost of roads per kilometer. He said one time you have money, these are loans, then you get about 60 million or 60 something, then you're spending it on purchase of condoms for people who are going to work on the road, CGE clinics. And this came from an authority, the Lord Mayor. He said, you people get your priorities right, much as we would advocate for more money from you. But what is there to show that the little you have, you're using it effectively?
Saying that you are putting that from the mouth of His Worship, the Lord Mayor, who happens to be my supervisor at a different level. I will not belabor to go into the details of explaining the context in which he spoke, but suffice it to say, I think I've addressed that issue with him, and he recognizes that his comments were made in jest and in error. So let us not go picking up old skeletons in the closet, especially those whose owners have already capitulated the fact that they realized it was a wrong submission. Needless to mention, there is quite a lot that KCCA is doing so rightly, and I don't even know why you concentrate on roads alone, yet you know that KCCA, for example, is involved in providing adequate, affordable, and of course within reach health services. We have health centers around the city that are providing incredible services, from dental surgery right to maternity submission. We have Kisenyi Health Center, who has been ranked the best health center in the country by the Ministry of Health for 4 years consecutively. We provide health services like no other person. We have seen stories of people unable to afford mere maternity services because they want to go to hospitals where they are paying an arm and leg complete with a liver just to have a delivery. Yet these services are provided by KCCA in an affordable, clean and pickable environment. Look at what we are doing in the area of public health. We have averted pandemics that could have otherwise ravaged this country. As KCCA, we have stood as gatekeepers and protected this country, knowing that Kampala is the terminus. Every sick person will want to come to Kampala for better health services, for everything, and so would be susceptible. You know, you are talking about it rains. Previously, when it rained in Kampala, it was not the issue of flooding, it was the issue of cholera. When was the last time you heard about cholera in Kampala? That shows you what we are doing in areas of public health. And you say our priorities are not right. Provision of education. You know that we run 78 universal primary education schools, that's primary schools. We run 22 secondary schools, providing cheap and affordable education of a pickable nature under the national curriculum. We are acing our examinations at national level. We are acing extracurricular activities. Our 3 schools went in for national music and dance competition, national. And the 3 schools came in number 1, number 2, number 3.
Simon.
And you say that KCC is not providing services?
Simon. These are what are supposed to be. Ugandans are not going to wait for... These should not be priorities to Ugandans. I don't see something that we should even concentrate on them. You know?
Provision of health services is not a priority to Ugandans.
No, this should not... You're doing what you should be doing. We can just say credit to you, but that is what you should be doing anyway.
No one has said no, but I'm just trying to throw a...
So let's look at what you're failing to do right, not what you're doing right. Because what you're doing right, you're appreciating. But what you're failing to do right.
Or you do, you appreciate?
You appreciate. And because you're doing it, it's no problem. For us, we are looking at where we feel that KCCA is not delivering to the expectations of Ugandans. And that is the road network, garbage collection, that at the end of the day, the two intertwine. When we fail to deliver at one area, then the problem is also envisaged in the other area.
Mr. Chirabo, let me bore you with the statistic I've already shared with you all the time that we have met. Our beautiful city has a total road network of 2,110 kilometers. I repeat, our city of Kampala has a total road network of 2,110 kilometers. Guess what? Less than 30% of this, which is less than 700 kilometers, has chorus. That just from that overview, just understand where we are coming from as a country. And of the 30% or the less than 700 kilometers that have chorus, more than half of this chorus is old chorus from 30 years ago that requires overhaul. Why have we been unable, or have we moved in such a slow pace in overhauling this already old chorus, or even increasing the chorus cover from 30% to maybe at least 50%? Money, resources. The prioritization from government to realize that this is the capital city where infrastructure development should be top on the agenda. And we make this case every single day to the powers that be. But we do not appropriate our budget allocations, do we? No. We have members of parliament, nine of them around the city. We have, in total, by the way, Kampala has over 4,000 political leaders, from your LC1 chairperson to the Lord Mayor himself and the members of parliament that we have. So we are heavily represented in terms of politics. But one asks themselves, why doesn't this then translate into affirmative action for budgetary allocation to make the situation better? And like I said at the beginning, and until we prioritize Kampala in terms of budgetary allocation, shall we see an improvement in what the Ugandans love the most, good infrastructure?
Now, there is a viewer here, he's called Tumusime Mwebaze, he's in Chigo. He says that, thank you for that information. Why doesn't KCCA put in place income-generating activities instead of always expecting funding from the central government?
Very good observation, Mr. Mwebaze from Chigo. Recently, just 2 weeks ago, a law, KCCA was implementing a law on park user fees that gives us the mandate to collect from every bus, every commuter taxi, or every special hire taxi that operates within our jurisdiction to pay park user fees. And this money was not even coming to KCCA. The money was going to the consolidated fund so that we increase on the collections of government. It is in the law, in the Local Government Act. Guess what? You saw the cry and you. KCCA, Banange, to effect and carry out enforcement of payment of illegal tax. You are a bus operator, you are operating in a Kampala, you are making an income, but you do not want to pay to the government. Then at the end of the day, you turn around and then say, unless you're saying KCCA should now open up a money printing agency and we start printing our money, which of course would certainly be ultra-biased. But yes, I'm glad that there are citizens like Mwebaze who begin to realize that for as long as you demand something from government, you as a citizen must do something to that government. Pay taxes to the fullest extent. Chirabo, you know how we are as Ugandans. Let's be honest about ourselves. You, Chirabo, if they gave you 30% per year, your employer UBC gave it and say, you know what, Chirabo, we are going to be giving you this money, but you're going to be the one to take it to URA yourself. Tell me, if URA would not be running around with you like a headless chicken in this town. We are very poor at honoring our responsibilities as citizens in paying the requisite taxes for which we are. We are always crying 30 cents, 30 cents, 30 cents. We only talk about the presence of money in past tense, 20 cents. But I've never had, I've been here for 45 years, Mr. Chirab. I have never had someone telling me, zero. 2 cents. No, we are always saying the 2 cents. But then when you speak about the presence of money, you speak in past tense. We are dishonest people. And until we learn to be honest and say, let me give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, then don't come to Caesar and start demanding for what belongs to you. You only get what you give.
Well, Simon, I must let you go in the interest of time, but let me just have your final message to people of Uganda, to people of Kampala who wake up every morning, they have to go to work to make a living, and the roads are in a very pathetic situation.
I don't want to subscribe to your doomsday messaging of the roads are in a very pathetic situation. I am going to say that we are carrying out immense reconstruction of roads in this city. It's one huge construction site, and therefore fellow Kampala and fellow Ugandans, there is going to be a lot of disruption. There are going to be diversion. There is going to be flooding as a result of construction, and of course as a result of our activities like littering and encroachment on wetlands. Here is what we're going to do. The rains are here. Let us be vigilant. Let us plan our journeys in time. Let us also behave well on the roads, because this traffic gridlock that you find, for the most part, is not because even the roads are flooded. It's because people are driving badly. Everyone believes they are so entitled. Everyone thinks munene munene. For as long as we do not behave well, the city will not welcome us as good people. So let us be vigilant. Let us not drive or ride into stagnated water, because you don't know how deep where you're riding into is. We don't want to lose lives. We've seen lives being lost, border people being swept off, a woman going down a train and all that. No, let us learn to have personal protection as the top. But we also, as KCCA, really apologize for the disruption, the diversions that are going on. But the good news is what you are seeing right now is the breaking of eggs for us to be able to serve you a good omelette wrapped very well in a chapati, our delicacy being the Rolex that will be served when these projects are fully operationalized.
Well, we just hope that you can expedite the process of that and we see these projects finished in time, because there are also
we would love
a
to
lot of...
expedite them, Mr. Chirabo, but you know, we do not want to run over a project because we want to give you convenience without doing work to the highest level of standardized specification. So if you want a good road, be patient. We select it for 36 months so that at the end of the day we give you a good road, not quarter.
Okay, thank you, Simon Kasiyate. That is Communications Manager, Kampala Capital City Authority, or spokesperson, for your time and, of course, that insight. Well, let's hope for the best. 36 months, like he has said, let time be the right judge if we'll have these roads done. Thank you for your time. The sportsman is here, very ready to give you all the updates. I hope he talks about the other tremendous goal that gave us a victory. Well, catch you later. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret? Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM? Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk. No, it is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are. But